This episode is sponsored by... I'm just playing. But I do have two things for you today. So we recently released a mini prospecting course, 100% free to access, where I break down the script that my last team used to go from 6 meetings a month to 60 meetings per month. There's a lesson on how to write great first outbound emails. And then there's another lesson on video and voice note prospecting and best practices. And there's so much more in the course as well. If you want to get free access, just click the link in the description below. Now, alternatively, I said there's a second thing. Maybe you don't need prospecting support, but maybe you need help running better demos or scoring your deals with MedPick, or you need help with prospects that are ghosting you. If this is the case and you want to unlock some of these trainings and resources, go ahead and join the prospecting course anyway, because you'll find there's other resources and more content in the mini content vault folder. So go sign up today and unlock these resources. Right, let's get into the episode. All right, welcome everyone back to the Hit Your Numbers podcast. This is the show where we bring you actionable content to help you close your skill gaps and advance your business. Today I'm joined by a good friend, Luke. Luke, how's it going?
It's going great. Great to be here.
Yeah. Do we need to speak about the Audi again on this episode, or have you managed to?
You can, but I know where you live.
Fantastic. All right, well, we'll skip on that because, yeah, no, it's a tough subject.
Sore subject. The saga continues, though, to be honest.
Does it?
We're reaching point of resolution. 11 months on?
11 months. Nice.
Quick.
Yeah, speed. Yeah, nice. Well, the topic today is about how to increase the effectiveness of go-to-market recruitment. So maybe we can take some of this, or maybe they can take some of this over at Audi and maybe improve and, create some improvements on their sides. Yeah. yeah, absolutely. Cool. We're looking forward to this conversation. Obviously, we met up a couple of months ago and had a really great conversation. This is kind of a bit of a follow-on from that. And I think it's a topic that, we both are passionate about. There's a big opportunity to refine and improve some of these areas so that we can attract great talent. There is a war going on out there in terms of like talent and like a lot of noise and things like that and like AI slop. So hopefully today helps a lot of, sales leaders and CS leaders listening to this to think differently about the way that they attract, but also convert talent through the funnel and through the hiring process. So yeah, I think maybe it's probably best, Luke, you kick us off with a bit of your journey, I think, for context, and everyone knows like where you've come from, and then maybe just let us know what you're up to these days, and then we'll jump into the conversation.
Yeah, no problem at all. Well, I won't rewind too far now because I find that it's getting further and further away. But I started recruitment actually back in 2010. So I joined a recruitment agency, and it was very much a boiler room sales environment. I loved it, to be honest. So KPIs are up on the board. It was very gamified. Every time you made a placement, and I made a lot of placements, your face would come up with a song playing. Ours was Scatman. So that's nice. Kind of encoded in my DNA now. Every time I make a placement, I feel the shudder of Scatman through my body.
Nice. Love that.
So yeah, I spent a good number of years in agency recruitment and moved to a couple of different firms. And then I actually flipped over to working internally and recruiting directly for a business that was very much, if you were to compare it to a SaaS company today, they were like your, pre-seed scale-up type organization, sales and marketing company. Spent 6 years there. They were acquired about 2/3 of the way through my journey. I then got promoted into a group role, which was working for a PLC. So very different, very corporate, lots of red tape, but lots of brands, including SaaS companies. So I got some real great exposure to some cool growing SaaS businesses, different leaders, different roles. And I just got to a point where, because I was managing a lot of agencies as well, and I just got to a point where I thought, you know what? I don't want to move into this kind of people type HR position. I mean, there's kind of an internal joke. HR stands for hates recruitment. So whilst I felt very comfortable in the business, I just felt myself slipping away from like being on the tool, so to speak, qualifying candidates and kind of, owning that part of the business. So I thought, what can I do next? And it was either go and work for a larger recruitment firm or just do it on my own. So that was the decision, which happened back in 2019. And obviously I picked a great year to start, because the year after we plunged into lockdown.
Yeah.
But the journey from that really was kind of learning what markets we were really good at, what markets we understood, and perhaps where there was a little bit of a gap. So we built from a customer success foundation. Everyone was hiring for CS, particularly in 2022. We had a real, rocket ship of a year, and I think every business was just piling the funding in. So I think any GTM role you could do pretty well in, and we still worked on sales and marketing. But as the company's matured, we've realized that whilst we're great at customer success, we've always been really good at the broader GTM piece of new business acquisition, sales and marketing, so SDRs, AEs, and the kind of digital marketing space. And then the growth and kind of retention of accounts, which then falls into your kind of CS function and the broader roles around that. And that's where we are today, really, just working with lots of businesses that are your kind of pre-seed to, say, Series C, some PE-backed firms. And it's just about getting great sales talent, great marketing talent, and great CS talent. And that's the focus.
Yeah, love it. And I promise that Luke didn't pay me to say this, but I've had the privilege of working with his team twice. Hopefully he'll pay me in a gym bag full of cash at some point down a dark alleyway so no one sees it, especially HMRC. But
did you not get the envelope last week?
No, I didn't. Maybe the missus took it.
Fine.
The missus probably took it, to be fair. I'll have a word. She's probably gone out and treated herself. But definitely had the privilege of working with Luke and the team in both my VP roles. And when anyone ever asks me, hey, who do I know? Luke is definitely up there with the people that I recommend, just because I've gone through the pain before of either when I was an IC applying for a role and having recruiters just chuck anything at me just so that they could hit their placement number and get paid commission. But then when you're a sales leader, the mistakes are even bigger and more expensive. So if you don't get the right partners in place, and for me, recruitment is definitely something that you should think about partnering, not trying to build internally, because they're experts for a reason. You guys never let us down, especially when times were, tough when we were early stage startup, and you looked after us. So anyone that's listening that is looking for great people and is struggling or they're about to go out to market, 100% have a chat with Luke. It's an absolute no-brainer. You'll get what I mean straight away. So
appreciate
go
that.
Follow Luke, give him a chat, and I'll take my 50 grand in cash.
It was 40. Fine.
Well, I just put a little bit of meat on that pitch there. So
there's
10,
interest.
10K on. Yeah, interest for sure. Market's
typical sales guy.
Yeah, always looking for the gap. Cool. Anyway, so let's get into the conversation. So one of the things that a lot of people are always interested in, what's happening in the market, what are people speaking about in the market? So maybe you can just talk to us about the market in general, and also what are you seeing out there from sales and a CS perspective, just in general, just for people that may be thinking about going to market to recruit at the moment.
So I would say if I could kind of frame it in one word, it would be hesitant right now. There's a good number of requirements out there. So businesses are certainly portraying that they're looking to hire at the moment, but there seems to be a real lag in pulling the trigger and actually making the hire. And we're hearing from a lot of candidates that, have been in process for 6 weeks, 2 months, and they've not made a decision yet. There's still some more profiles to speak to. So I think overall, there is an intention to hire, but if you look at the kind of economical factors, and I don't want to get too political, there's obviously a lot of stuff happening globally right now. There is just a bit of nervousness about adding that headcount to the business. So we're certainly seeing that as a high level, but there is a focus on, again, growth roles. So sales and marketing, they're always at the forefront, but there's just a little bit more time taken to actually make the decisions. So I keep going around the same thing, but it's definitely more hesitancy. And I just hear that from sales, CS, SDRs. And the bit I hear directly from individuals actually is the expectations have really increased. So what they actually want, and sometimes versus what they're prepared to pay, seems to be slightly off kilter. And there is a reason for that. There is a perception to leaders at the moment that there are a lot of people looking for work. There's lots of CVs online, there's lots of applications, but when you actually dig into the quality and the conversions of that, I would say if we want to talk about it in sales terms, our actual our sales addressable market there is a lot smaller than they realize. It just perceptibly looks like there's a lot more people because there's just a lot more numbers coming through.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the perception. And I guess if I was speaking directly to candidates, which I do every day, I would say don't let and this isn't a candidate conversation, right? But don't let large volume requirements put you off. So if you see a role with 400 applicants, this doesn't mean you're not going to get the role. Just slow down and actually assess your capability to solve the problem that business is looking to fix right now through making this hire. And if you've got really relevant experience, don't necessarily bypass the process. Follow what you've been instructed to do, because nothing's more annoying than, look, here's a clear set of instructions. And I think you did this recently, James, where you were like, I want to hire for this position and this is what you need to do to get in touch. And like 5% of people actually did it. So don't bypass the process, follow it, but then complement it, add layers to it. If you're a salesperson, that shouldn't be a complicated notion. And if you're applying for a more commercially centric customer success role, then demonstrate your commerciality up front. So find the pain points, and they'll usually be in the job spec. If they're not, you can do some deeper discovery and then tailor your profile to that position. So that would be my thing. It's kind of like slow down and then assess where you can add value and then demonstrate that value, whether it's a voice note, whether it's if it's a video platform, send them a video recording tailored to them, a short covering letter, whatever it is. But don't be put off by high volume numbers, basically.
Yeah, love that. And I think what you're kind of saying here in general is very similar to what I say when I go into sales organizations, which is, although your business might not have changed too much, the market has. Buying has become so much harder.
Yeah.
Because of the economy, right? Like if I think about a VP of HR, which is a persona that I've built sales org selling to, they don't have a seat at the table, don't have budget to execute. And when they become a buyer, it's their moment to shine. So they become a control freak and they get really nervous. And buyer's remorse sets in. They're risk averse. Buying committees are bigger. Like if we like it or not, or if we know it or not, like there are more cooks in the kitchen, and they have their own opinions and competing initiatives. So when I'm talking to sales orgs, like you actually now need to compete with that. And the reason that sales has become harder is because buying's become harder. So you need to close that gap, right? And when you were speaking there, I wrote down, the market, there's like this hesitation. And I wrote down buyer's remorse, make it easy for people to say yes. Like when I'm selling, I'm building a business case, even on a renewal, I'm building a business case because I want to put my best foot forward and make it easy for someone to say, yeah, no brainer, let's roll. Right. But I don't think SDRs, AEs, CS, AMs, whoever you are, VPs of sales that are recruiting, they just follow the process, and the process is outdated and clunky, right? And then they're just waiting for a yes or a no. And it's not, I'm looking for someone that's going to take action, that's going to drive something forward, be it a new logo or a renewal or expansion. And I'm expecting that person to do it with me through the interview process. Would you agree?
Yeah, totally agree. And the market's changed considerably in the last 2 years. So if you think of an SDR that's maybe 18 months into their role and they're looking for the next position, the last time they applied for a role, they may have been contacted by 5 different recruiters, 10 different companies, and they've got all of this inbound where they are in the driving seat here, where they're having to change behavior. And it's just attributing the same behavior you would put into a sales process, a sales cadence, into applying for a job, because you're not selling a SaaS product here. You are selling you as a product. And I always say this to candidates, and we're kind of diving into the candidate piece here, but I think it's important. Productize yourself. So what are your unique selling points? And there could be many, right? You've worked on enterprise deals. These guys are an enterprise deal-making organization. They're in the transportation technology space. Tick, tick, tick. Some of the stuff that would be a unique selling point for you, broadly speaking, you don't need to talk about. But if you then make sure your CV is slightly tailored to that business and really highlighting maybe some of the competitor logos you've worked with, the deal cycles you've closed, etc., and then following up with them directly and saying, hey, I've seen you guys are looking to hire, instead of a generic message, I'd love to find out more about this job, it's tell them why they need to talk to you about it. So I just want to put on your radar, I've applied for the position. I noticed that you guys work alongside the following platform. I've actually used that in my current position, and I know how tough the onboarding cycle is. When I speak to a lot of other people, here's one of the pain points and challenges. One thing I did at this business is solve this problem, which led to X amount of revenue. It's so relevant, you know? So you're just
100%.
literally applying the same principle instead of a multitude of cold out. So it's kind of like cold calling, right? You can just bash through loads of cold calls without any really intentful data, or you can take a little bit of time, Jeb Blunt, slow down to speed up, and your target just becomes a lot easier, a lot narrower, and then your value to that business becomes a lot clearer. And I think that's the key thing.
Yeah. Especially if you want to tackle that hesitation thing and
Yeah.
make it feel like a safe bet. Okay, cool. That's good. All right. So let's walk this thing out. Let's kind of turn this into like a mini masterclass. So let's just assume that I'm back in my VP of sales job and I'm looking to hire an account executive. And, we've not made a hire in 12 months, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Or maybe I've just got this role and I've not made a hire in this industry before. What can a recruiter do, Luke, to kind of support me through that process, but with a focus on increasing hiring velocity and reducing risk for me? Like, as a
Yeah.
partnership, what can they do to support me through that process?
Yeah, well, I can give you kind of an insight into how we work, and I think it's important to note that not everyone works the same. And as you would with taking on a candidate, or you should always really vet a recruiter before you start working with them first and foremost. So test, don't over index on personality, really test ability, look at references, recommendations. If you can seek intros, fantastic. So that's kind of the first thing. I'd always say, look, slow down, make sure you select the right partner. And a big part of that, like a sales call, will be through that discovery phase. So you should be able to sit down in front of a recruiter and they should ask you questions that you're probably not even thinking of. And they should give you considerations that you're not thinking of. So, really unpack the real need for this position. We want to understand, okay, talk me through the journey here so that we can build that journey and messaging for candidates, right? And it's the whole warts and all approach, because a lot of businesses will just put their polished, this is how we are as a company, this is why we're great. Whereas when you work with a recruiter, we're kind of finding out all those little bits in between, so that when we're speaking to a candidate and they're giving us a really honest, heartfelt insight into why they're looking for work, if someone's saying, look, the startup environment just isn't for me, and actually, look, this is going to be late nights, early mornings, hard work. Some people will love that, some people won't. But having someone in between to buffer that and kind of drop that barrier straight away is really important. So discovery is key, making sure that you fully understand, why you're hiring for this position, what impact it's going to have on the organization, what's the ramp time, just get all that information. But what a recruiter can give you through that discovery process, so that it will enable you to make the right kind of hiring decision, and also give you the right direction, is true market insight. So what are your competitors doing? Where do these people hang out? What parallel industries could come and sell in this position? Because it might be, actually, like you said earlier, you targeted HR decision makers, right? Now, HR tech typically targets HR decision makers, but there might be other software that leverages HR decision makers that you don't even think about, that we can bring to you and give you examples of. So I think, again, it's that discovery process, it's that market insight. And then what a recruiter can do is, instead of you having 400 or 500 CVs in your inbox, they can bring people to you that you've said, these are exactly the things we want. And it's in a really considered way, where you're not spraying your brand out to a multitude of candidates and then effectively having to deal with the fallout of not being able to get back to people. And they know who you are, they know who your business is. So yeah, it's a really long-winded. I'm waffling a bit, but you can bring me back in, James.
Yeah, no, that was good. I wrote down, ask great discovery questions of each other.
Yeah.
This is not a one-way thing, right? As a
Mm.
VP of sales, my job is also to ask you great questions to
Mm.
qualify if you're a good fit to go and make that really expensive hire that's going to make or break my year, or
Yeah.
help us go from C to Series A, or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. And if you're a recruiter listening, like, your job is to act like a consultant. If you're a salesperson listening to this, your job in discovery and throughout the sales process to act as a consultant. a lot of organizations are giving AEs and like CSMs like the job role of consultants
Yeah.
to make them sound like a consultant, but not actually training them
Yeah.
to execute consultant level
Yeah.
conversations. So it's actually just a massive waste of time. It's
Yeah.
a bit like trickery, and like people aren't stupid.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
might believe you're a consultant until they speak to you, and then when they hear the first couple of words that come out of your mouth, they're going to be like, okay, this person's just trying to sell me something. So
Yeah.
like genuine like consulting, being a strong
Yeah.
advisor.
It's being able to truly add value to the process. So the difference, like, let's say you're a VP of sales looking to hire at the moment, and you're collating information, you're collating data. Like, where do you get that information from? Because a lot of it will just be, you might have a fairly good network, but a lot of it will be what you can source online and perhaps what you've known previously. And yeah, we've always done it that way. We know doesn't work particularly well. Whereas recruiters are in the market every day, so they are riding that wave literally every day. And we know from a salary perspective, does it align? It doesn't matter what your competitor pays, because actually, in some cases, with all due respect, they're a lot further along with you than you are. Sorry, their offering is a lot more stable. So what's the value of joining you? And there's a tremendous amount of value, but it's not going to be positioned the same way as that entity. So you have to think differently, and you have to extract, okay, well, look, you've just got Series A funding. That's an exciting time, but it's also a really challenging time for the business. It's about super scaling now and thinking about, yes, we're hiring for today, but does that person evolve with the business as we go through B and C? So getting that bit right is so crucial. And some people will love that journey, and that's what they want to step into. But some people, again, hiring from a competitor, they've kind of been there, done that. And do they want to go back through it? So what's the carrot to entice people into that? And that's what you got to think about. Don't try and hire in the vision of your competitors or what you think the market is doing. Like, use that information to then build, okay, what problem are we looking to solve in our organization? And then build the role around that, using salary insights, etc., that are going to be attractive enough to bring people in, and use incentive models, like EMI shares, tangible shares as well, not just, pie in the sky sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And, that's going to considerably increase your time to hire as well. And you've probably, seen this debate. Companies know they're getting lots of inbound inquiries at the moment, so we'll just put a job ad out and we'll hire it ourselves. Honestly, if you're a sales leader that's thinking like that at the moment, then what is your opportunity cost here? So let's say you spend a week of time looking to recruit someone, collected time, and that's advertising, sourcing, screening, interviewing, and hopefully getting to offer, making that offer. Hopefully they start, they've got a notice period, you've got to manage them up until that point. But what about all the customers you could be speaking to in the 40 hours that you've dedicated to that? So when you spend 20 grand hiring a really world-class AE with a recruiter, you're probably spending 100 grand recruiting that person directly, because of the opportunity cost of landing 250 grand deals, plus all of the time cost on top of it. So the positioning of the role is kind of one thing. And that's what I would say is really important. Have a recruitment partner that challenges you and makes you confident they can take your brand to market. But also think about the overall speed to getting the right people in your inbox. It's not comparable. And when you've got a good recruitment partner and we work together, it's just not comparable. Go and sell, and we'll bring you good people.
Yeah, I just refuse to do it in my orgs. I just think there's just such a better way of me
Thankfully,
spending my time and energy.
yeah.
And if I ever, touch wood, ever go back into those roles again, one thing I wouldn't waste my time on. I would just have a partner like you just do that heavy lift for me. And the great thing about Luke, and you get the right partner, is over time they start to really understand like the core requirements, characteristics, wants, needs, desires of you and the business, so that it just gets more and more and more and more effective, better, faster, more effective. So yeah, it's so important. I think we could talk about this for a long time. There's something I really want to get into. I wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit more, but I want to kind of just jump a couple of steps ahead, because we're both pretty active on LinkedIn. I was really active when I was a VP of sales, because I had this kind of thought process that when I'm recruiting, it's like selling. So
Yeah.
if I want to get my buyer to say yes to me over anybody else, or just to say yes to me because, we're the last vendor in play,
Yeah.
if I want to avoid that kind of fear of making a mistake, I need to build confidence, authority. So I started to post content on LinkedIn, sales content, so that when I was recruiting, not so much to feed top of funnel. And I guess that is a part of it as well, is it does help,
Yeah.
attraction. But I think the conversion play is really, really powerful. In my
Mm.
last org, we sold to like the Amazons of this world, and the product they were buying was also to improve the conversion and velocity throughout the recruitment process,
Yeah.
and like tooling to help them do that. And that's where posting on content on LinkedIn can be really powerful. And I don't know about you, Luke, but whenever I speak to sales leaders, and I guess I was guilty of making this mistake very early on, is I put a job advert up, you give me some CVs and some people, and then it's 100% down to them. Like, I'm just going to score you, qualify you, and you should want to come and work for me. But what I didn't realize is they're also interviewing at like MongoDB,
Yeah.
Snowflake, HubSpot, these great companies that are paying twice as much. They're giving
Yeah.
them better options, things like that. And I wasn't doing any quote unquote selling,
Mm.
inspiring them.
Yeah.
And that's where I think like employer branding at the VP or the head of sales or head of CS level is so important, because it's wildly competitive out there. But actually, the reality is, out of the hundreds of thousands of people on the market, there's only a handful of them that are really, really good.
Yeah.
And that branding piece can make all the difference between them picking you versus picking someone else. Like,
Yeah.
do you see that as well, or is that just something that I'm seeing?
No, 100%. And as much as clients will always say, or businesses would always say, look, we're going to check out a candidate's social media, we want to see their online presence, how they behave online, etc., what they talk about, what they care about, is exactly the same for candidates. Like, their journey starts before they're in the interview process. So they're going to start looking at things like, okay, can I learn from this leader? Particularly when you're in an early stage business, how credible is this leader? Where have they worked before? They will look at you as a trainer, a mentor. That's really important, right? But also as a company brand. So there's one thing being an individual brand, which is incredibly important. And I'm not saying post every day, but just like showcase what the business is about, because your customers as well, even if you're in customer success, your customers will care about what you talk about online. So I'd say that's important. But the business itself needs to really care about their perception online. And that's where things like Glassdoor come into play. And I've worked for companies where they kind of bury their head in the sand a little bit when it comes to Glassdoor. But then when you are the recruiter for an organization and the feedback you're getting, again, a value of having an agency, right? And this isn't an ABR pitch, but the value of having an agency and being that barometer of what people say about you on the market. And it's unfiltered as well, right?
Yes.
You really can't put a price on that. And I'm not saying businesses should now go away, look at their Glassdoor and start putting fake reviews on there, because that's pretty obvious as well. Best workplace ever, when the previous 17 are what a terrible CEO we have. But there does need to be a bit of an internal investigation there as to why we're seeing this stuff. But also, champion the people in the business that are doing a great job, that love the company, that typically just can't be asked to log on and talk about what a great business it is, because they haven't got a reason to. So I think you build a bit of a culture internally of, look, guys, one of our pillars of really developing your role here is hiring the best people. That's going to grow the business really quickly. And speaking candidly, our Glassdoor reviews do not represent what we all feel about the company, hopefully. And it's about positively encouraging the collective workforce that's doing a great job, that's really positive about the company, to start sharing their thoughts and feelings online. So yeah, brand, mate, is everything.
Can be super powerful for attraction and conversion, right? Especially when you're
Mm.
in a very competitive situation. A couple of things I wrote down here is that feedback loop is so much better and faster when you have a partner, because it's like when you do a survey, bad news takes time to travel uphill.
Yeah.
So if I've got a partner out there getting the real honest truth about our business, candidates aren't going to tell the VP of sales at the company that is trying to hire them, right? But they would tell you, and you can collect that feedback, package it up, and then best recruits will come back with a strategy to help overcome that and get
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
talent, right? Another two things that came front of mind as you were speaking there is like podcasting. When I was a VP of sales, like we're podcasting right now, but when I was a VP of sales, I would go on people's podcasts to tell my value story. and that's things around like salary, comp, and the reality in those two things combined as OTE.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people talk about OTE, but like, is it actually like possible? Like, are people actually getting there? You can like put any number out there if you want to, unless it's real. Path to promotion, capturing and distributing evidence of like promotions and developing people, that bigger picture, the mission, the vision, where the business is going, differentiation, like that stuff is what will win you and has won me when I was a sales leader. Talent from people that were paying significantly more, but they knew that they were going to get 100% of my time and effort and attention, and I was motivated to develop them as as human beings, as professionals. And I think going out and jumping on a podcast or putting a 3 LinkedIn posts out every week about success stories in your team, people will see that, and when they're ready to take that action, which is to apply or look for a new job, they'll think, who's that guy that I think is world class? I'll go and apply.
Well, I can think of 2 businesses that do that really well off the top of my head. So Hi Bob, for example, they're great. They share their success stories. We don't work with Hi Bob as well, just to be clear, but they share their success stories on LinkedIn all the time. And I think as a candidate, you'd be thinking, that person's been promoted. Oh, another promotion. That's really attractive, right? And another business, Hook. So Hook is a CS platform. Again, like those guys clearly promote. They have an interesting growth journey. They've got great leadership, funding, good backers. There's investors that like and share their stuff online. So there's just it feels like a moving train, and if you're prepared to hop on and work hard, it's a great business to work for. Again, we don't work with them, but I've interviewed leaders from the business and I've met a lot of them. So I think it's just testament. And the bit you said about, which I think is really interesting, providing candidates with the evidence of, look, salespeople are motivated a lot of the time by cash and learning and development, right? So if you can show them that, then you'll have a stickier pipeline of candidates. But the expectation typically from hiring managers is you need to demonstrate what you can bring. You need to showcase what you can give us. But there needs to be that middle ground of, if you can do that stuff, this is what we can do for you. And that's a different interview style, which good recruiters can complement, because we're saying, look, we're working for 2 people here.
Yes.
So we're working for your best interest, but we're also trying to make sure the candidate's going to come in and stick, and we're aligning those expectations. And there was something I just wanted to mention, and we've talked about this before, and this is probably, again, like jumping ahead, but what a lot of businesses don't do, and they should, is when a candidate joins the business, they typically get maybe a nice starter pack, and shout out to the awesome stuff that you've just done recently. It's not a starter pack, but you've got some really nice...
appreciate that.
It looks really good. I'll pick your brains on that. But typically you join a business and what do you get? You get a contract, a starter pack, and maybe like a rundown of what your first week looks like, and lots of diary invites. That's the standardized kind of, this is what it looks like. And where I've seen, I won't mention the businesses, but where I've seen some real success is building an additional layer of expectation. So when you join a business, you have expectations about what has been sold to you. And it is a sales process through the interview. So development here, tons of training. We have weekly one-to-ones. We have weekly stand-ups. The company invests heavily in the following, whatever it is. But this is what the company offers you in your first 6 months. And the same is when you're hiring a candidate, it's like, okay, from the 3 hours we've spent together, 4 hours we've spent together, this is what we've got from you. And here's kind of what we think we're buying. So candidate, this is what I'm investing in. Client, this is what we're investing in. And that never seems to be logged. So I think what's a really good exercise, and I'd recommend businesses trial this, I'll explain why as well, especially if you're hiring at volume like SDRs, but just have an expectation setting document. So what am I getting from the business? And what are you expecting to get from me? And think about how powerful those one-to-ones will be. It's a little bit like when you're doing sales discovery and you're signing up a customer, it's almost like not giving that information to the CS team, and you're just expecting at point of meeting, i.e. your one-to-ones with your new candidate in 3-4 weeks time, that everyone's on the same page still. Things get forgotten, things change. And I think having that expectation document gives a point of reference. And the reason that's so important is when you hire people, there's so much data, right? So if they're successful, amazing, great data points. What did they do to be successful? And what were the expectations we set? And how did we interview that person? How did we score them? Yada, yada, yada. But what about the guys that leave the business? Sometimes, and probably more often than not, if a salesperson doesn't work out, sometimes it's close the door, you're dead to me, right?
Yeah.
And you see that a lot. And I hear that a lot from candidates. And sometimes the role's just not a good fit. You should be exiting everyone with a really clear interview around why did this not work. And if you've got your point of reference, it might be that actually what we expected we didn't see from you, or the candidate might have a case to say, well, actually what I thought I was stepping into wasn't what was sold to the interview process. So I think having those clear reference points are so important, and more businesses should index that, in my opinion.
1,000,000%. This is like, I've learned all of these scars the hard way. You witnessed the majority of them a couple of doors down in the office when I was building Staff Circle. And, I used to hire people and then they didn't make it. And then I would blame them and I'd be like, get really frustrated, and working all these hours, just can't seem to, move the business forward. And then I had a bloody hard, conversation with myself and was like, if somebody doesn't make it, it's 100% my fault.
Yeah.
And there's two things really at play here. So if there's any sales leaders listening to this, grab a pen and paper because it's simple but super important. One is I should have never hired them in the first place. I need to go back to my scorecard. I need to make sure I'm recruiting for the right characteristics and I'm assessing and qualifying them like you would with a sales pipeline if you're a medic seller or whatever, right? If I would actually hire this person again, because based on the characteristics, they were a good fit, but they just weren't able to connect A and B together to get C, then it's 100% my fault for not inspiring, training, coaching, and developing that person. They weren't able to go and do what other people have been able to go and do. Yeah. And sales is a game of skills. Yes, there's attitude and work ethic and things like that, but it comes down to skills at the end of the day. And these are all, you can teach all of these. So if I've hired the right person, and I would definitely hire this person again because they matched Johnny, Sophie, and Mike, who are, always through quota, then I just wasn't able to help this person become great. And that's 100% on me. But unfortunately, we have these hamster wheels. They're hire, fire, hire, fire, hire, fire, blaming everybody else. It's not me, and the reality is it starts with us, right? And like you said there, having great expectations. I'm pretty sure you told me this 4 years ago. And I just started giving people a Google Doc. And I said, look, we're going to meet on the first day. I want you to write onto this document two things. The first page, your job description, what you believe is expected of you. Yeah. Second page, what you expect of me.
Yeah.
Right. And I will hold myself to those. And I'll never cancel a one-to-one, or I'll never do this, or I'll always do this. But if I'm going to make that commitment, I want you to make the same commitment to me. We shake hands, we move forward. And then when either of us stop doing those things, we instantly pull each other up.
Yeah.
If you're an SDR and I'm the VP of sales, you pull me up.
Yeah.
And if it's the other way around, I pull you up. And it's the best way to do it.
And you might ask when to implement that. I would say before the candidate starts.
Yes.
So at point of offer, I would say that needs to go out relatively swiftly, because you don't want to be at point of offer, notices go in and hang on a second, this is not what I expected from both sides. But one thing you mentioned that was important there, and we didn't dive into it too much because I'm conscious I was kind of waffling on, but it goes back to the initial selection process. And again, in terms of point of reference, there's so many points you can build data here, and too many businesses, too many sales leaders, too many CS leaders, they over-index on the personality side and the kind of the good feels. Oh, I connect really well with this person. They're our type of person. Can't necessarily put their finger on it, but they're just our type of culture, right? Yeah. They might drink at the same venues that you go to. They might be into the same. It's kind of unconscious bias, right? Positive or negative. And they under-index on testing their sales ability, their CS ability. So the interview process just becomes a bit too conversational and not tested enough. And if you're hiring for an AE or an SDR, like an SDR is really simple. What should a great junior SDR be able to demonstrate? In my opinion, it's their ability to learn and implement. So it's their coachability and its structure, its repetitiveness. So give them a task that enables them to learn something and then actually implement that in a sales call, for example. Give them feedback and run it 3 times. Do they get better by the 3rd call? And you know what? Throw some curveballs in there, some difficult objections they might have might not have thought about, and see how they deal with that pressure, because you're going into a sales role. There is going to be pressure. It's as simple as that. And if you really don't like that, then maybe sales and being an SDR isn't necessarily the route you want to go down. Same with being a CSM, dependent on the requirement. And do you value the commercial side? Is this more technical? Test it. Like, build a test. You can have all the personality bits and build a scoring matrix for that. So coachability, adaptability, and have a weighted score for that. It's a really old book, but the Sales Acceleration Formula is a
So good.
really, really good book. I still reference it now all the time.
Yeah.
Use that to build a characteristic profile, and then have a technical element to it, which tests ability. Simple.
1,000,000%. That book changed the way that I think about recruitment. I built a scorecard. If anyone's listening to this, like, I just DM me on LinkedIn, I'll send you a copy of it. It breaks down the key characteristics for your context as well. Is important. Like, there's no point in hiring for characteristics that are important for Salesforce. I'm not running Salesforce. I'm running a 7-person startup in a new category. I need to think about, what do I need? Like, I need curiosity. Well, how do I test for curiosity? I bring them into a role play scenario and I see how they ask me questions about the assessment.
Yeah.
Versus just jumping into it. Or how do they ask me questions throughout the interview process? Like, for example, I'm leaving my job, I get no coaching, but they don't ask me one question about coaching.
Yeah.
Like that, for me, like, are they curious? Are they intelligent? If I need intelligent people because we're a very kind of small, busy, stretched team, they need to be able to figure things out fast. So I give them a little task and see how quickly they can apply that knowledge, like you said there. So most people just say to me, and they probably say it to you more than they say it to me though, Luke, is, hey, I need an AE, but they've got to be a rock star, or they need to be an A player. And you go, sweet, I need to go and find that person. Can you define rock star for me? And they're like, someone that just hits target all of the time. It's like, yeah, but what are the things that we need to assess for? And they can't give them to you. And if they do, they say curiosity and coachable. And then when you ask them, okay, cool, how are we going to assess this? It's like deer in headlights. They're like, shit, I got to go. I'm going through a tunnel, because they're so embarrassed.
Yeah.
Because they lack curiosity themselves
Yeah.
to think about what's important.
Yeah. It's so true. And again, you've got a data point. So you've got the data of going out to market. So if you do it directly, it's probably more challenging. But if you're using a recruiter, they can do a wash up. This is how many people we prospected. This is where people hang out. Here's some of the competitors we think you can recruit from. Data. Then you've got interview data. Then you've got, okay, we selected someone. We've got their scoring, right? Excellent. Now let's do our kind of touch point of, what are you expecting from us? So the expectation side, 6 months time, are we all aligned? Yes, we are. Great. We move on and we continue to assess. And actually we try and replicate that process because it's working. We've got a great performer here. Actually, they ramped quicker, and we took a risk because we took someone from a different industry, but we found that their sales ability was better than taking in industry, whatever it might be, or they exit the business. And again, you capture that data as to why. And then you just build, over time, you build a really good data pool of hiring. And you have to be sensible enough to know that it's going to change based on market conditions and, the kind of generational shift in how people consume data and information and attention spans, etc. Like, all that stuff is a factor, but the data's key. You
and
can't ignore the data.
You might not like it. You might not like what it's telling you, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
Right. And, all you can do then is, build a get well plan, I call them, and implement it and come back and see if it improves.
Facts don't care about feelings, is it Ben Shapiro?
Yeah, right. Like, come on. And that's one thing that a lot of sales leaders should kind of really get, is data, right? They're in the data all of the time, and this is just something they need to get curious around. Look, conscious of time, I wanted to leave the last kind of 5 minutes to be like highly kind of actionable takeaways. And there's one thing that really talks about this employer branding piece that I want to kind of talk about. So if I was going to go and be a VP of sales tomorrow, and I've got a recruitment partner like Luke, or I've got an internal team, or the business has a position on it, it's my job to do it, whatever the situation is, I'm going to create like employee testimonial videos from my team, just like I do with my business right now. If you go to my website, they're like, I've littered the website with them because I want to build overwhelming confidence I'm the right partner.
Yeah.
And, everyone can make up testimonials, when you can see the human being and the words coming out of their mouth, that, AI is good, but it's not there yet. So I think get your team of 5, 20, 100, whatever it is, go to market team members and get them to each spotlight something that's great about working here. Like James
Yeah.
goes out of his way to jump on a sales call and help me overcome a big objection, or I get a notification in Gong at 8:30 on a Saturday night where he's giving me feedback on one of my calls.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be that, but like, you get my point, right? Like, and you capture all of those stories, and then I give them to Luke, my recruitment partner, and say, "Hey, use this for attraction." But but more so in between the interviews, I want you to feed these through, because I want to build confidence in this person when they're speaking to other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd be posting them on LinkedIn. They go onto the career site, they go onto the job description, and I would start to create this overwhelming confidence that I'm the right person to come and work for. And when there's all this like noise in the market and very few great people, I am going to grab them. And, you know, I did this at my last business because we had a platform that created those kind of videos, and you can do this without technology, obviously, but yeah, like the playbook has to evolve, right, Luke? You know, the game from 2019 is very different to 2025 going into 2026.
Yeah, look, A players don't want to apply for B roles, and that's what you've got to think about. If you are not projecting your employer brand online, then A players are not going to find you. And the benefit of using a recruiter is your brand can be taken to that individual, but also not to kind of put ourselves out of business here, but it should just be a company mission. You know, hiring is one of the fundamental pillars, and whether you use an agency or not, you still want to build the positioning of, like, we're a great business to work for. You know, we're a scaling business. All the stuff you said, and actually, you said one really interesting thing, which I don't know if a lot of people will pick up on, but you said James jumped on Gong and gave feedback at 8:30 p.m. or maybe you said 8:30. Regardless, let's assume it's p.m. To me, that is a cultural insight into the hard graft that you put in. So someone thinking, oh, do you know what? I just want a 9 till 5:30 sales role. Then they might not be a good cultural fit for your business. And you know what? That's okay. You're allowed to operate that way. You're allowed to work hard. And
1,000,000%.
I don't want to climb up on my soapbox here, but it's almost negative to talk about that stuff. But I think it's a net positive, because if you put out there the warts and all view of your business, then you're going to attract the right people, you know? And I think that's really important. Most people know if you join a pre-seed or Series A business, you are going to, at a point, you might have to configure your own computer, you know? You might have to switch your role slightly. You might have to jump onto a sales discovery call in the absence of the two AEs, because they're both, one's on holiday and one's on client site. You know, you might have to do that. And it's so important to make sure that that's the message you put out. And that's the honesty I always give. And I like to think it's why we've got a lot of recommendations, because we don't BS candidates. Like, this is the role. We're not trying to sell you and like thumb you into the business. It's
I don't get why people do that, mate. Like, why? Sure. Like, it's only going to become undone in like 24 hours into the job.
Well, I can tell you why. So there's two industries that stand out with a really archaic sales model and commercial model, which we don't work to anymore. So it's a contingency way of working. So we want you to go and work really hard for our business, Luke. We're not going to pay you until you place the candidate in our business, which could take a month to find, source, interview, and offer them, and then 3 months for them to join the business, right? Because they've got a long notice period. And typically, if you're extracting someone from a business and they're really good, they're going to try and keep them as much as possible. Sales is usually a bit quicker. Particularly US roles, it's like that. They're out within 24 hours. CS is 3 months a lot of the time. So recruitment drives the behavior of, it's not quality. It's, I've got to get some shit. I've got to get some CVs over to this guy because, you know, if I don't, I'm going to lose my job, right?
Yeah.
So I've got 5 jobs to work, 10 jobs to work. I've just got to get CVs over. Where our mentality is we take money up front on a retainer basis, and then we have SLAs in place and we work consultatively with businesses to be like, this is what we're going to deliver in this time frame. This is what you can expect from us. And you can hold us to account because you're paying us a small retainer. And think about the other industry that pays on results, that has a really bad reputation, is estate agents.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone slags off estate agents. They work to the same model. So maybe the commercial model there is the problem. It's like, if you pay a salesperson commission only, do you think that's going to drive the right behavior? I don't. I mean, it will drive deals, but
will drive behavior.
Yeah. Will they land? Will they be sticky?
Oh, the right ones, yeah.
So it's a consideration, but I think the old model is dying, and that recruiter is becoming less and less successful now. And businesses are realizing, do you know what? Actually, we need people that really invest in this as a career, not right. I can make 50 grand a year, which probably isn't in today's money.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, coming back to content, right? So
Sorry,
work
Jeff.
with a great partner like Luke, uh, but then from a content perspective, it's not about attracting always about that conversion piece and creating some confidence. And what we're doing here right now is perfect. Like the other day, I booked 9, 10 CROs, VPs of sales, sales leaders to come into my podcast and talk about leading through change, coaching the coaches. So, like, how
Yeah.
do you coach first and second line managers? How to set OKRs? How to have tough conversations? How to run a one-on-one? Go on to people's podcasts,
Yeah.
spend an hour talking about your expertise, things like that. And then companies like mine, and I know you do this because you did it with me when I came on yours, they'll give you like 5 or 10 little social clips, and you
Yeah.
can post those onto LinkedIn and give those to candidates. And guess what? Like, you are selling.
Yeah.
Like, the quicker we
Yeah.
realize that our job is to sell the opportunity to come and work for us, and we need to qualify that you're a good fit, just like you need to qualify I'm a good fit for you,
Yeah.
the better. So go out there, like, find a podcast, reach out to me, reach out to Luke, come on the podcast, tell your story, show your evidence and proof that you bring people in and you take them places. And I promise you'll never have a talent and a conversion problem again.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're going to be always in this, like, fight, race to the bottom. And, there's a better way to do things in 2025, right? So,
Totally agree.
all right, cool. Well, hopefully that was helpful for everybody listening. Maybe I'll leave it with a cliffhanger. The question I wanted to ask Luke was the importance of getting a deal off the street fast is really, really important. And I think so many hiring managers overcomplicate with their 28-step interview process that the person's retired by the time they get to offer stage. It's just bananas. Like,
Time
the
kills
people,
deals.
time kills deals, absolutely, and it allows time to set in around like fear and doubt and things like that. So I'd love to come back at you and do like a mini masterclass on like how can we actually run a really effective interview
Definitely.
process for an SDR, AE, and CS, and like break those down into three buckets.
Definitely. It shows indecision, right? And if you're in a fast-paced business that's growing and scaling, and you can't decide how to hire, when to hire, that's concerning.
Agreed. Actually, I moved on from it early, but we'll just wrap it up with this. And it is about the candidates, to be fair. So if you're a sales leader, you can tune out and I'll see you on the next episode. But if you're a SDR or AE or CS listening to this, when Luke mentioned at the beginning when he was giving market insights around like people, like there's all this hesitation, the words that came out of his mouth were, we still have profiles we need to look into. Now, when a buyer says that to a salesperson, that tells me, and this is a signal, that they are not convinced we're the right fit. So if you're a rep listening to this and you hear a hiring manager say, hey, good chat today, we've got a bunch of other profiles we're looking at, we'll come back to you. Take it from me, where I've been on both sides of this. I don't feel like you're the right person for it, and I'm gently letting you down because I'm just going to go and look at the other people that I've got lined up. If I really wanted to move forward with you, knowing like the importance of time kills deal, you'd be having an offer letter in your inbox within 5 minutes, and I'd be picking up the phone and asking you to sign it.
Yeah. I'll finish on an analogy, shall I, for that?
Go for it.
It's a bit, I've probably said this to you in the past, actually. It's a bit like dating. And you reach that kind of offer, that final stage, which is committing to that individual. If one side says, look, I'm ready to enter a relationship here, and the other turns around and says, I just want to date a few more people, what signal does that tell you? Yeah, I'm using the analogy because it's happened to me so many times in the past.
I mean, look, storytelling, right? Like, if anything about you is you're honest and you tell it as it is. So there we go.
I've got to have one positive.
Got to have one after this negative 60 minutes. But yeah, like I think we could probably go into a lot more detail on this. I'd love to get you back on, especially talk about like the velocity piece around like getting deals off the street. How do we go from that very first interaction all the way through to making an offer and then moving into that onboarding piece?
Yeah, and then what we can do, we can provide some some insights into how to build a scoring metrics, etc. Like a matrix. Sorry, more than happy to kind of share that. It's a scoring matrix with metrics. So
Yeah, there we
I
go.
knew what I meant.
Yeah, and we'll put some tools together and we can put those into the show notes as well for our next session. But
yeah, perfect.
Thanks, mate, for taking the time today to have the conversation full of value as I expected. And for everybody else, go check out Luke on LinkedIn. And you got a podcast as well, right? Doing it for retention.
Correct. Yeah.
Go check that out as well. And I will see you on our next episode of the Hit Your Numbers podcast. All right, Luke, see you soon.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks for listening to this episode. I've got something else I want to give you before we wrap up here. So we've built the leading skill optimization platform with 400 plus sales lessons, 12 courses from prospecting all the way through to late stage deal negotiation and more, one-to-one sales coaching and AI sales assistance. And I want to give you 7 days free access to the platform. The reason I want to do this is because nobody gets a degree in B2B sales. And after training and coaching hundreds of sales reps and teams in the last 2 years, most haven't mastered critical selling skills. And it's preventing them from being promoted, earning great money, and building a great career in B2B sales. So go to therevenueenabler.com, grab a free trial, and join hundreds of salespeople that are closing their skill gaps and mastering sales. There's a link in the video description. I'm looking forward to getting you set up. Give me a shout with any questions.